So today I have the pleasure of having Charlie Morgan. To me, in my books, Charlie is one of those brilliant minds. I've met brilliant minds in medicine where you just understood and you could see the person understood the body and the anatomy and how it functions at a deeper level. And I've seen brilliant minds in fitness and I've seen brilliant minds in business. To me, at like the top of the list in terms of teachers, I put Alex Hormozy at the top. But meeting you at the mastermind of almost a year ago now, Charlie, and we've been friends ever since. To me, you're right there. Like you're right on the way to being where Alex is, if not already there in terms of your knowledge and the way you understand it. And why I wanted you on my channel today is that I think you would be able to deliver this better than so many people online, if not 99% of the people, how to become a millionaire. And me and you both have online businesses, but I want to leave the floor to you, Charlie, and a slight introduction or an introduction on yourself, man. Who are you?
Of
Why
course.
should people listen to you?
Well, I'm really grateful, man. Thank you for having me. Your words are very kind, and I don't think I'm quite up to Hormozy's level yet, but I'll try my best. So I appreciate that, man. Yeah, so my name's Charlie, as Mike introduced me. I've been running online businesses now for near enough 7 years. Became a millionaire when I was about 21, 22 years old.
Wow.
And we now run a company called Imperium Acquisition, that does near enough 8 figures. And we basically help people with client acquisition, so coaches, consultants, agency owners, etc., etc. And yeah, that's what we do. My first business was a marketing agency, which we managed to grow like 64 done for you clients in the gym space. And then COVID rolled around and kind of saw us off there. But that was actually like a blessing in disguise. So that's my background. It's where I'm coming from. It's who I am. Live in Dubai. And I'm looking forward to getting into it, man.
Yeah, man. And just for context, you became a millionaire at 21.
Roughly around there. It would be to put like a specific date on it would be difficult, but that's when we were doing like 100 grand a month in the agency.
Right. And you're how old now?
I'm 25.
You're 25 years old now. And if you don't mind sharing, how's that Imperium acquisition doing at the moment?
Really good, man. The Q1 not so hot. So last month we did about 600 grand. But typically we can range anywhere between 800,000 to 1 million a month. So last year we nearly clipped the 8-figure mark. Like it annoyed me because we didn't, like, so I have to say I'm nearly there. But the thing that I'm happiest and proudest about is, we're nearing the point now where last year we signed, I don't know, near like 1,000 clients or something into the program. And that's the main thing, man, is just helping people. So but yeah, it feels pretty good. That's where we're at.
That's awesome, man. And Charlie, I always wanted to know if you could just think to the genesis of this, the start of your entire journey. Like, what was it that told you and you decided, okay, I want to be a millionaire? What was it in you? Or decided that, hey, I'm seeking for financial freedom. Who was it? What was it? What was the moment, if you remember?
Yeah, sure, dude. I mean, I'll be very transparent, and it's an answer that most people tend to not expect, and it's quite a raw one. It was really anger, I think. My story when I was a kid, I wasn't really, I wouldn't say worthwhile, but I wasn't particularly useful growing up. Like as a teenager, just video games, no girlfriend, not many friends, like, bullied at school, like sob story here, blah, blah, blah. And I think when I got to 18, sort of 17, 18, all of that sort of this lifestyle that I'd had up until then kind of just really made me angry. It just made me quite upset, and I was quite angry at myself. And so honestly, man, the thing that kept me going for the first few years in business was just this anger. And I know that that's not a healthy way to behave, but at the end of the day, like, you can either drink or you can build a business. You're going to go one of two ways. But really where it began, I had the psychological conditions set for entrepreneurship, I think. And that was a very fortunate thing. And I was on Facebook and I was scrolling through my newsfeed, just being an idiot, right? And I came across a Tai Lopez ad, and it was a house tour. So it wasn't the Here in My Garage one, but it was a house tour of him, doing what he does best, right? With his phone, making an ad. And I didn't know, I thought the only way to have a house like that was to be famous, or I didn't know who this guy was, right? So I was like, hang on, you're telling me that you can do this without having, like, being an actor or, like, being a banker or something. So I watched the ad, registered for the webinar, and I ended up purchasing 67 Steps, which was Ty's first program.
Okay.
And it took me, man, I sat on that decision for like a month. I was like, $67, is it a scam? Like, oh God, they're going to take my credit card details. And I bought that. And that was the first, that sort of set the tone for for where I went. And since then, man, I've just never looked back. That was the sort of initial condition to the trajectory that I've been on. So yeah.
So rock bottom, and you decided you were the only way was up.
Yeah, basically, man. I was looking at my life and I was like 18, 19, whatever, 17, I can't remember. And like I had these two directions. I was like, I can either go and build, like I can either just go and get a mortgage, get a job, have a wife, have a family, live happily ever after, shepherd's pie for dinner, like, you know, home by 5, you know, see the kids, play some FIFA and just, you know, live that out, you know, for the next 30, 40 years until I retire, have some grandkids, blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I would never judge people who were taking that route. But for some reason, that just absolutely terrified me. I really was terrified of this whole mediocrity and being average and being normal. And so the business and the business path, it gave me an opportunity to manifest that. I don't know if you could call it narcissism, perhaps, because grandiosity, ego, if I'm being honest, because I didn't want to be normal, so I wanted to be abnormal. So maybe there's an element of that. But that's kind of how it went.
On it. Yeah, man. And with this topic, I think everyone has their start, right? Where that one pivoting moment. But if you were to speak to someone who just came to you and they were in your position and now they wanted to make they want to become a millionaire. They made that decision. Where do you start? What is that start point?
Yeah. So the first variable is time. Like what you said there, like how to become a millionaire in 2024. Like what you should be doing is looking at how to become a millionaire in 2030, essentially, because it's not going to happen in a year. It just won't. Like if you haven't got previous entrepreneurial background or experience, it's going to take like 6-7 years. And I think you probably, maybe this is a similar thing to you after you finish medical school and everything like that as well. Like it takes 5, 6, 7, 8 years for someone to actually become a millionaire. And it's not just about time, it's about focus as well. And it's about sticking to one thing for like 6-7 years, because it's almost like you kind of just, I'd say starting a business is like you pick a model and you pick a niche, you pick an industry, right? And it's kind of like you're riding a horse. And at the beginning, the horse is going to try and throw you off. Essentially, it's going to try and like, you're grabbing onto the saddle and the reins for dear life. And like, you're like a cowboy and it's going to chuck you around. And all you have to do for basically 7 years is just stay in the saddle. And as soon as you know, if this thing's throwing you around and then you see another horse, like, you know, a couple of miles away and you think, oh, I'll get off this one and see if that one's, you know, less horrible to ride. Like it doesn't matter what horse you're on, it's going to be hell for the first few years. And so I think that's the thing that people mistake, and the biggest mistake people make with this whole like becoming a millionaire thing or making money online thing is not accepting that it's going to take like 7 years, because most people can't even think in 7-day time horizons, let alone 7-year time horizons, right? So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, once you've accepted the fact it's going to take ages, be willing to just do one thing and just stick to that one thing, and don't have this shiny object or shiny horse syndrome where you want to go and sit in another saddle because it's painful. So I think that's the first thing I would say is time and focus. And once you've got those two things, and once you've got the model, your entire goal shouldn't be to become a millionaire. It shouldn't be to make money. It should just be to be the best in that industry.
As you're saying that, I had a client of mine in a group coaching call.
Yeah.
And she told me she was stressed. And I asked her, like, we had time, there was not a lot more people. And she told me that she was starting a business. And she's really, really good at drawing. Like she does animation. She's done animation for Pixar before and Disney, but more so like a part-time job. And I was thinking about it now with what you were mentioning. It was always my goal to achieve financial freedom when I started my YouTube channel.
It really is just about skill, because if you're starting and you have no idea what you're doing, you have no skills. And so the business is like an opportunity. Like it's not about the business. This is what people don't understand, is you're not trying to build a business. You're trying to build a character, right? You're trying to build yourself. And I know that sounds cringy and cliche, but this is honestly the thing that I'm starting to understand now, is like everyone's so obsessed with building a business, but the business is a reflection of you. So instead of trying to build $1 million business, just try to become the person capable of doing that. And so if you are the kind of person that can build $1 billion business or $1 million business, naturally you will. But if you focus on the business, then you won't.
Yeah, and I think that that analogy about the character you have, there's a crazy statistic with people who win the lottery for the first time, with what happens with their money once they've won it. So if we were to speak to someone for the first time and they tell you, hey Charlie, I want to make $1 million in 7 years, what is the first step? Where do they
so the first thing is you have to learn how to sell. Because if you want people to give you their money, you have to be able to convince them to give you their money, right? So that's the first and the single most important thing. And I learned that really early on. So I went to uni, and I dropped out like 18 years old. And at the time, I was reading a book called "What You See Is What You Get" by Alan Sugar, Lord Alan Sugar, right? He's knighted or got a lordship in the
Wow.
UK, and he's a billionaire, right? So I was reading this book, like, okay, this is cool. And in the book, like a third of the way through, he says the only thing you have to worry about if you're wanting to start a business is learning how to sell. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good. So I went to my university tutor and I said, hey, when do we learn how to sell? And then the tutor was like, well, you don't. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And then the tutor was like, well, because none of the people at the uni have had their own business, so we don't teach sales because they don't know how to sell. I dropped out the next day. Just straight up, I was like, this is not happening. So the first thing is sales. Like, are you able to articulate yourself and convince and persuade people to part with their attention, money, and time so that you can achieve your goals? But that's the first thing. The second thing is the business that you're building, whatever it is you choose, should be built around your market. It shouldn't be built to serve you. It should be built to serve your customers. And so when people build businesses and they create, business plans, I've never made a business plan in my life, by the way. I think they're kind of silly.
Same.
Like forecasts and stuff. Like, come on, we can't even predict the weather. How are we going to predict how much money we make, for crying out loud? But like once you've developed some sort of skill in sales, it becomes about understanding the people that you're serving and configuring and structuring the architecture of your business around that person. And then the second thing is pick one thing and just start learning obsessively about it. If there's someone in that thing that's made $1 million, then you can as well. And this is what people don't get. Like, there is almost any industry you look at, whether it doesn't matter if it's Amazon FBA or dropshipping or SMMA or consulting, it doesn't matter what horse you choose to ride, someone has probably ridden it successfully before. And as long as someone has, then there's proof of concept that you can as well. And all you have to do is illuminate, the caves and the specific problems and just solve them. And, then that's how you get to seven figures. So it's that. And then it's also, when you do decide what you're building, make it all about the client. Obsess over the customer. Make it so apparent that when someone buys from you, that you have thought everything through for them and you care and you love them. And if you do that and you stick to it, it's kind of hard to lose, I think.
When with that, I think just to track back on the sales, because that's, I guess, the first question everyone's going to ask. And I know I was in this position when I wanted to start a business, is like, where do you learn sales? I mean, you mentioned to go get a sales job, but I mean, in the day and age we live in now, like, it's everywhere. If you were in that position and you were to tell your brother, hey, go and learn sales, where would you tell him to go and learn sales from?
Well, this is what I did, is pick the industry and then find it depends, because if you're doing like e-commerce, then you don't need to learn how to sell. You need to learn how to market. It's non-verbal sales. That's what marketing is basically, right? So like, it depends on the model. So if you don't want to talk to people, and that's what your business isn't going to be about, talking to people, it's going to be about selling lower ticket products online, then you have to learn how to do marketing, right? But really, if you know how to sell, you can do marketing. It's the same premise. But like, I can tell you what I did. I just got an apprenticeship. So I decided that the thing that I wanted to do was marketing agencies. And so I called up all these marketing agencies locally to me, and I said, hey, like, will you take me on as an apprentice? And some dude was crazy enough to say yes. And so, all I did was cold call. Now, if you don't want to go and get a sales job, which might not be optimal for most people, you just want to get started, just make sure you get your first 30 customers through cold calling. That's the sort of metric and the benchmark, that if you can sign 30 clients and convince 30 strangers to buy from you using nothing but your voice, then you know how to sell. You've graduated. The problem people have with these online businesses, specifically ones that focus on like B2B sales, where you're hopping on a sales call, is they hide behind their keyboards and they hide behind DM and cold email and even sometimes ads to get their first few clients. And when it comes to actually doing the sales call, they haven't developed the verbal dexterity or, the linguistic know-how to actually convince someone to purchase. So when I was starting, I had this apprenticeship and I was doing cold calls for this agency, but I'd also do my own cold calls in my spare time. So in the space of a year, I did like 300, 400 cold calls a day, like 10, 12 hours a day of cold calling. I wouldn't do that forever, because it's hell on earth, but that will teach you how to speak, and that will teach you how to persuade people. And then I see this with, have you seen this rise recently of become a high ticket closer? And there's all these people now getting into the market who want to have these, like, have you seen this? Like, if I was one of these, the problem with these high ticket closer programs is they're good, right? Some of the guys that teach these guys how to close know how to sell. But what they do is they create a sense of entitlement where when someone's been through the high ticket closer course, they feel like they are now entitled to a job, 10 grand a month. If I was in that position and I did the course, I would go to businesses and call them up and say, hey, I want to do outbound sales for you, and I want you to give me 20% of everything that I sell. You don't have to do anything. I'm just going to make the calls for you. Give me a list of leads and I will make you money. But people don't want to do that because they don't want to do the cold calls, because they're like, oh, well, I should be an inbound closer. Like, no, you shouldn't. You've got no bloody experience. You've got no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you want to get started, just pick up the phone and pick it up like 10,000 times before you give up, because most people do 100 cold calls and then quit, you know?
So I'm trying to think of, imagine someone watches this video. Where do they go to now? Where do they go next after this to go down this rabbit hole of like learning how to sell? Because they wouldn't just jump on the phone and do cold calls.
Yeah, honestly, I would just YouTube it. I would spend like 3-4 weeks on YouTube just watching every single video I could, because like a lot of the YouTube content for a lot of these industries is pretty developed now. We've seen a pretty interesting trajectory where, in order to actually compete and have a decent sized channel now, you need to make good content. It needs to be better than most people's paid content. So if I was like brand new beginner from scratch, no idea, no entrepreneurial background, no paradigms, no belief systems around it, I would pick the thing that I want to do, like selling art online, like Etsy or something, or whatever. And then I would just watch a bunch of YouTube videos. A lot of the knowledge on YouTube will be wrong, but that's up to you to, to try and filter through, and you'll learn. But it's a patience thing, man. It takes years.
Cool, Charlie. So now we have a product. We've learned how to sell the product, right?
Yep.
We can now sell. What do you believe is the next skill that someone needs to acquire in their journey of becoming a millionaire?
Okay. So yeah, let's go back through the steps. So step one is picking the industry. It's picking the thing, it's picking the model, it's picking the vehicle, it's picking the horse, it's saddling up, it's locking your legs in, and it's not letting go. That's step one, right? That's the first thing. Once you've done that and you've sat on the horse and you decided you're not going to get off for 7 years, then you have to learn like how to obviously sell and how to persuade and convince people to do things, right? And that, as we've established, you can do that through YouTube content. You can do that through cold calling, even if you have no idea what you're doing. But just YouTube should give you enough. There's 50 to 100 examples of people closing $6,000 deals that you can listen to. The thing after that is the product, right? The cornerstone to success is product. It is the most important thing. It is more important than sales. It is more important than anything, right? I've learned this, that product, if you really want to do the long-term thing, if you just want to make $1 million and go away, then you don't have to have a good product. But if you want to do like the long-term game and you want to be in this and you want to build something proper, it's all about product. So you have to know, like, what is it? Well, first of all, you should know what you're selling, right? But it's making that thing so good that nobody can compete. You won't be able to do that in the beginning. If you're new to the industry, you might be like, well, how do I know how to make something good? You won't. You're going to need like 30 to 100 clients before you can even build something that's even remotely good. So you have to let go of the idea of perfection and don't be crippled by that and just charge lower prices for the first year, like you did, $60 a month. Like it ain't much, but you get enough iterations of that thing through. This is why it takes 7 years. I would objectively say that our program for the whole high ticket acquisition thing is, in my opinion, of course I'm biased, objectively, nobody can beat it in terms of detail, complexity, and the level we're at. The only reason that it's that good, and I can say that honestly, I think, is because I've spent like 7 years doing this. So that this is the whole thing. Like, it didn't really, like, even with Northflow, with the first agency, we sucked for like 50 clients. We really didn't do that well. And then you start to pick it up, just like anything. So that's the first 3 things: is picking the thing, learning how to sell, at least in theory, and then picking the product. The thing that comes beyond that is learning how to position your product in a crowded market. So an offer, like when we talk about making an offer or building an offer, what you're doing essentially, an offer is simply positioning. And positioning works on a scale of contrast. And what that means is that you don't build an offer in a silo. You don't build an offer as a standalone thing. Your product is going to be compared to other people's products in your market. And so when you're creating an offer, it's not just standalone, it's against everything else. So the idea behind offer creation is basically to position your product in a way that is different, unique, or otherwise superior to other people's products in the market. So this is a fundamental shift required in someone's thinking to go from normal 9-to-5 civilian to millionaire. Is you don't sell what you think you sell. For example, let's say that your client sells artwork, right? And she thinks she's selling artwork. What she's really selling is how someone feels when they see that piece of artwork in their home. If you sell sandwiches, you don't really sell sandwiches, you sell the satiation of hunger. You sell the result. You sell what happens or as a result of someone buying the thing. And what I said earlier is that value is created when pain is alleviated. And that's just solving a problem. So if I have a bare wall in my living room and I don't like it, and I so happen to like pictures of flowers, I will buy that artwork to put it on my wall so that I don't feel shit when I look at my wall. That's obviously a stretched example, but we don't buy products or services, we buy outcomes, we buy future desired states. And so the offer creation mechanism involved in this how to become a millionaire thing is all about understanding what do you actually deliver to people. Because if you think you offer Facebook ads, you don't. You offer more clients, you offer financial freedom, you offer the ability for someone to sit on a beach in Bali and have their dream life, or get an Instagram fitness model as their girlfriend, right? There's all of these different things that people want, and the business or the product is the vehicle to get that. So that's the next thing.
And I think with that, in coming to the conclusion, I have this photo that I shared, or I was showing my team in 2019. I wrote like a vision board. I took a picture with it with my phone with my goals, right? And I had there to make 100K. I was still in medical school, never hit the goal, right? Very much like what you're saying, it takes time. But it was last year for me that I can finally say that I made $1 million, and to have $1 million in cash. But it took almost a year for that to happen in terms of the steps. So I worked with Will, right? And Will, I remember in our conversation with Will, was like, hey Mike, what's your goal? And the goal was to hit $83,333 a month.
Yeah.
Right. That's anybody who's ever started a business knows what.
Dude, my first goal for my agency was $8,334 a month.
Right. That's to make your 100K a month, right? A year.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching, with your goal to make $1 million in a year, the best way to think about it, Hormozi does this, I'm sure everyone does, is to reverse engineer it. To say, okay, you want to make $1 million, which means in a month you need to make $83,334. And to do that, you need to sell how many products do you need to sell to hit that particular number, right? How many units, and depending on what you charge for that unit. So then you determine the price. So if it's for the art business, say for the client that I'm speaking about, it's how many units of her product does she need to sell to hit that 83,000 a month? Or in your case, what other example do you think you'd give?
It's super simple, man, because the inversion, like sort of reverse engineering model that you just described, what you can eventually do is you can bring the output all the way down to the input. And like, for example, we can do some simple maths here. In fact, can I share my screen? Will that work on the YouTube thing?
It will. So yeah.
I can give a straightforward example of this, because it gets super linear and obvious as to exactly what causes the effect of being a millionaire. But let me just find this a second. It's going to take me a brief second here.
Yeah.
So this is something that we have in Easy Grow, which is reverse engineering your goal. And what you can basically do, here's an example, right? So let's say that someone's goal is to make 240,000. Just zoom in here, right?
Yeah.
Let's say someone's goal is just to get to 20K a month, right? And their goal this year is to make 240,000. And each of their clients is worth $6,000. Their sales conversion rate on calls they conduct is 20%. The good fit rate of their sales calls is 80%, which means that they have 5 people, 4 actually resemble a fit. The show rate is 82.5% on the calls they book, and their appointment booking rate on cold leads is 2.5%. So what you can do is you can figure it all out down to the single variable that matters most. So the first thing we do is we divide the amount of money they want by how much a client is worth, which means we have to get 40 clients. So most people leave it here. Most people think, okay, to make 240 grand, 40 clients. But what you can then do is, if you do 40 divided by 20%, we need 200 good fit sales calls, because the good fit rate is 80%, right? Then what we do is we divide 200 good fit calls by the show up rate, which is 0.80, to get 250 show ups. So now for us to make 240 grand, we need to have 250 show ups. But then what we do is we divide the, this is actually incorrect, I think. Oh, no, it's not. Then we divide the 250 by the show rate. Sorry, it's a good fit rate. And we get 303 bookings. So if we have a sales conversion rate of 20%, a good fit rate of 80%, and a show rate of 82.5%, all we need to do to make 240 grand is book 303 appointments. And it sounds way easier to do that, but then you look further. If our appointment booking rate is 2.5%, we divide the amount of bookings we need by 2.5%, which is 1,120 emails, right? And if we then do this, where we say it's 12 months, it's 365 days, we take away weekends and we take away 14 days for holiday, which means to make this goal happen of 240 grand, we have 247 days. So what we then do is we take the input, which is how many emails we need to send to make 240 grand, and we divide that by how many days we have, and we get 49. So all you'd need to do if you had these metrics to get to 240 grand in a year was send 49 emails a day.
Incredible.
So when people look at making money, they panic because they're like, how the hell am I going to make $1 million? But, well, can you send 50 emails a day? Like, sure. You know, it takes a while to get these metrics because I can tell you now, these are good metrics. 2.5% ABR is pretty good. 80% show rate, very good. 20% sales conversion rate, very good. So this depends on your skill level. If you're good at selling, you know how to get people to show up and you know how to book appointments, it really is just as simple as sending 50 emails a day. You know, you could be more pessimistic, right? If let's say that your sales conversion rate was only 10%, well, then you'd need to send 100 emails a day, right? Or let's say your show rate was half, then you double the number. But that's how you have to learn to think, because then you actually can control it. Because it's no longer about how do I make $1 million? It's about how do I send this amount of outreach. Or you could reverse engineer that with YouTube views as well, or impressions on ads. And then it truly does just become about the input. And then all you have to do is wake up every day and just focus on that number, and then you're going to make a ton of money. That's how I see it, at least. That's how we get to 8 figures. It's like, all we have to do is just send X amount of messages, X amount of emails. We need to have X amount of setters. We need to spend exactly this amount on ads for this impression, and we need to do this many YouTube videos. And if I just do that, I make $1 million a month. It's really simple. So that's how I see it. Like, it's just numbers. It's a game.
Incredible. And I want to leave it on that amazing high note. Charlie, for everyone out there, I know we're on a fitness channel, but if you want to be able to learn about everything we spoke about in more detail, obviously we tried to condense what would take people 7 years into an hour.
Of course, you're never going to get that in time, but
right. And I would highly recommend, I'm going to put Charlie's first link, his YouTube channel, in the description. If you want to and go over there and consume the wealth of knowledge that you'll have there. Charlie, where can people find you? Where else would you say is a good place for people to find you?
Sure, man. Honestly, just the YouTube channel, I think. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I don't really have any social media. Well, I do, but not that I use. So just the YouTube's fine.
There's a video on there as well that I really liked by you, which inspired this one, is how to become a millionaire. And you speak more so about the mindset that someone has to have. So I'd also highly recommend that particular video. It's an hour.
Yeah, it'd be a good.
Yeah,
it would be a good follow-on one. The one you're referencing was posted sort of early January. Yeah. So if anyone goes on my YouTube channel and just goes to the most popular video, I think that's the most popular video I've ever made. So they can just check that out. But yeah, that kind of explains a lot of these points in significantly more detail. But dude, I really, really appreciate you having me on. I'm really grateful for your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone watching this subscribe to you, because they should.
Hell yeah.